Well, let's talk to Kaveh Guilanpour, who's Vice President for International Strategies at the Centre for Climate and Energy Solutions. Good to see you. Welcome to the programme. Almost all of the world, 95% of the countries who've signed up didn't meet this deadline. Why are they doing so badly?
Well, you're right. Most countries haven't come forward. It's actually just slightly over 10 that made the deadline yesterday. Most countries are citing the fact that they would like more time in order to develop the domestic policies necessary to come forward with ambitious targets. And actually, the UN's climate chief, Simon Steele, is on record as saying it's better to come forward after the deadline with something more ambitious, if that's possible. But at the same time, it's disappointing because we've known of this deadline for around about 10 years since we agreed the Paris Agreement in Paris in 2015, and only 2 of the G20 so far have stepped forward, so that's definitely disappointing.
So what about these few countries who have submitted? Are the goals that they've actually set going to make any difference to global targets?
Well, the collective emissions represented by the countries that have come forward are minuscule, but every country counts and matters in those terms. And certainly the emissions of the United Kingdom and Brazil amongst those that have come forward. Brazil, of course, will host COP30 later this year, so it's important that Brazil has shown that leadership by coming forward, and the presidency of COP28, the United Arab Emirates, similarly have come forward with a new target. So while collectively they don't amount to much yet, the UK's target has been widely praised as being ambitious and in line with the 1.5 limit of Paris. So in that sense, it does matter.
So for those countries who haven't met this deadline, is there enough accountability, do you think, enough sanction, any comeback for actually not meeting the deadline?
Well, technically, those countries that have now not come forward, which is somewhere around 180 countries, are in breach of the obligations under the Paris Agreement, so probably they will be receiving a notification to that effect. But the Paris Agreement was designed specifically to essentially rely on peer pressure. So every 5 years, countries come together, they have a global stocktake, which we had in Dubai 2 years ago. They come forward with new NDCs, and then they report on their emissions. And those first emissions reporting requirements were at the end of 2024. And the major economies, including China, did come forward with those reports, as far as I understand. And what we are essentially in is a system of peer pressure and political shaming if countries don't come forward. So the real big deadline will be COP30 at the end of this year, but also the UN Secretary General is widely expected to host countries to have a meeting about the nationally determined contributions, the climate targets of countries, in the margins of the UN General Assembly in September, although that's yet to be announced.
Kaveh, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. That's Kaveh Guilanpour from the Centre for Climate and Energy Solutions.